Yance, welcome. It's so great
Hey.
to have you here discussing, I think, one of the most fascinating movies at Sundance this year, Power, which is all about the history of policing in the US. It's such a natural topic. It's something that I'm amazed hasn't been explored in a film quite in this way before.
Yeah.
What ultimately made you want to make it right now and look at it the way that you did?
I started working on the film, developing the idea back in 2020, in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd and all of the protests that we saw both across the country and around the world. And watching the police respond to those protests led me to start asking the question of what are police for, but in a different kind of way, right? Because it seemed different this time in the ways in which civil disobedience and constitutionally protected protest was being put down both here and abroad. So that's really where we started. And once you ask that really fundamental question, what we soon realized is that the answer really goes much, much farther back than anybody actually anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that moment in 2020, one of the things in their response to the protests was that there was this intense, almost this intense desire to just preserve themselves and to just like the idea of policing is sacrosanct and it cannot be challenged and it cannot be, there were so many things to come out of that, but that was particularly fascinating to me. And I think your film does really capture this idea, like this is meant to be essentially a force that is above the law in many ways.
It's actually not a force that's above the law. It is a force that is the law, right? One of the things that we make really clear in the film is that a lot of the things that we see, a lot of the misconduct that we see that's so shocking to people is actually legal. One of the points that one of our interviewees makes is that, no president, no head of state, no congressman can walk up to you and shoot you in the chest. But any police officer has the discretion to use deadly force based on their judgment. And that kind of power, consolidated in such an institution that has been growing, like Democrat, Republican, presidents since the Johnson administration, that kind of power consolidated without any kind of democratic checks or balances is a danger to our democracy.
It really is a segment of American public life that is essentially unregulated. I mean, as much as we talk about body cameras or whatever, I mean, is essentially, you talk about some of there's a Supreme Court decision that basically allows the police to do whatever they want. I mean, that's remarkable. And I don't know if even a lot of people have given that enough thought to realize that.
One of the things that I'm really proud of with this film is that we give people a lot of information that's really crucial in understanding how police function in our society that they don't necessarily know. Like you're not going to walk around referring to the Supreme Court decision of Graham v. Connor, but that's what justifies police discretion and as the basis for the use of any police action, including the use of deadly force. In the film, we look at 300 years of police expansion, right? And what the use of force looks like in the 18th century, the use of force looks like in the 19th century, the 20th, and the 21st. And you can see, if you pay attention, that there are things that are consistent through time, like the chokehold, that really sort of give you an understanding that there is something fundamental about policing that has always been there, and that has always been about containment and control of us.
I think there are going to be so many things that people didn't realize, like just the idea that the first professional police force in the U.S. was only founded in 1838 in Boston.
Right.
It's something that you think, oh, it must have existed before that. And there were other forms of it, I'm sure, but it's, that this is a relatively recent history that we're talking about here.
Yeah, so the first publicly funded police department was founded in Boston in 1848. But the three kind of points of origin that the film talks about is slave patrols in the South, the use of the army as a police force to clear indigenous Indians from their land in our westward expansion, and the use of the police in northeastern cities to police immigrants who were not yet considered white. So Irish, Greek, Italian Americans were all heavily policed in ways that we would think are, exclusive to the 20th century and to communities of color. But one of the things that the film really sort of shows, through the use of this archival material that we found, is that no, this policing has been functioning in this way. It's just traveled across communities in different ways, over this course of time.
Yeah, and I mean the dynamic that you show about how, for those European ethnicities that emigrated over here and were not considered white, how essentially a path to establishing whiteness was to join the police.
Yeah.
Um, you know, that kind of dynamic, those kind of details, what kind of research ultimately led you to connecting those dots?
Sure. We researched a lot. I feel like I learned so much making this movie. We have a consulting editor. His name is Stuart Schrader. His book was a huge part of our research. Also, the work of Nicole Siegel, violence work, Nikhil Paul Singh, all of the people in the film have devoted their life's work to understanding policing and the role it plays in our society. So we took from this vast sort of group of people and narrowed it down to the folks who helped us understand as clearly as possible this 300-year expansion and continuing expansion, and really focused on them as our primary storytellers.
I think 2020 is such a pivotal moment because there is this insularity that the police projected at that moment, that they so often it feels like just want to protect themselves. And I remember my MLB team actually had their social media manager had tweeted like, today's a good day to arrest the killers of Breonna Taylor. And the sheriff in our county actually said, we're actually not, we're going to consider not providing any security or any police help at those MLB games any longer. And it's like this purely transactional idea of policing all of a sudden. I mean, it's stunning.
One of the things that the police have traditionally done is threaten to withhold their services in the face of critique, even when the critique is legitimate. It happens in cities around the world. If you live in New York, I would pay you $100 to tell me the last time you saw a cop on foot anywhere in your neighborhood. The withdrawal of service is actually illegal because they are public servants, right? So just like it's illegal for airline workers to strike, it's actually illegal for police officers to strike. That's never stopped people from slowing down the pace at which they respond to calls. It's never, stopped police officers from projecting outward this inability to do their jobs, when in reality, there's nothing standing in the way of police doing their jobs. They have unfettered access to weapons, money, the law is on their side, and yet there is this narrative of police being under siege, when in reality, it's just citizens asking questions about, where is the line, like where are the line of my rights, and when does it come up against the line of your authority, and is this actually balanced? Like, you have actually too much power over my life, and police don't like to be criticized. That is a fact. You can look historically. That's a fact.
This is a sprawling narrative that you've condensed into, a relatively short running time. And, I'm curious, like, what was your process of finding the focus of your film, of assembling all this material and then whittling it down to the film that ultimately has premiered?
Our editor talks about building meaning over time. And that's really what we set out to do with this movie, was to start at the beginning, right? For everyone, we all start at the same place in the film, with no, assumption about what you do or don't know about policing. And over the course of the 85 minutes of the movie, we literally lay out a thesis, let's say, right? And I even say at the beginning, I'd like you to consider this, this history of policing. And you can either greet it with suspicion or greet it, with curiosity, but it's going to be new to you. And so as we built meaning over the course of those 85 minutes, the thing that we wanted to do was to arrive at the moment that we're in now, informed fully by the trajectory of the 300 years that we've seen in the film, leaving people with the question of, is this what you want?